Hi, my name is Kees. I'm a spiritual teacher. I've been walking the path for over 16 years, had many shifts and realizations on the path. Now, today, I'm going to react to this beautiful Frank Yang video, which is my favorite video of his, and I haven't watched it in a while, so here we go.
In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between mystical experiences of meditation, psychedelics versus enlightenment. Moment-to-moment description of the full natty state, how to do self-inquiry, to drop the ego once and for all, and what is truth, love, God, and death, why it's important to ultimately transcend the entire paradigm of spirituality. See, before...
Yeah, so I love his crazy style. I love his visuals. I'm always so impressed with his videos and how he makes such cinematic, beautiful videos. A little bit of an intro about him. He's like an amazing meditator with Vipassana as one of his backgrounds. This is a breakdown of different states and of sort of realization. He talks about one, the ego, which is basically, what we end up developing as a kid, as a teen. And then we go and have spiritual awakening. We go to this second one, like awareness, being the witness of that which is unfolding, but also realizing that already deep down we are okay. And for example, with my spiritual awakening, I had this big peak experience, big glimpse of no self actually. And I can say that retroactively because I went through these phases. This third stage, which he names God, Brahman, love, or being, I would call that a non-dual awakening, which is awakening to the oneness of everything. And that's usually has the aspect of fullness versus this number 4, which has the aspect of emptiness or nothingness. So after this fullness realization, you often have a sort of sense of emptiness realization. And for me, that was a less big of a deal than going from this personal consciousness in step 2, being the witness of personal consciousness, to going through to this non-duality in step 3, which was definitely a big shift because it feels like you're just in one soup. But then this soup, this reality, gets this other aspect, which is 4, which is this emptiness aspect. So you get emptiness and fullness at the same time, but because you haven't experienced emptiness like that, it just feels very new. And it feels like, oh, now everything's empty. But actually, not everything's empty. It's empty and full at the same time, but you haven't noticed. And then number 5 is when you've realized these aspects of reality, then there's still something that's watching that. You could say it's a point of view from which you're watching reality. And often that's very subtle. It's like a very subtle sense of self, which when that drops is the true no self or the natural state he talks about. When you're experiencing all of these simultaneously. And this video is particularly about him talking about what it's like to live after no self, which is something I also made a different video about, which I'll link also below. By the way, if you're going through these phases and you want some personal support, then make sure you book a free call with me in the link in the description, and we can just talk about your experience, where you are right now in these phases, and what would be your next step. So if you're interested in that 30-minute conversation together, let's go.
Awakening, you're in a separate state, the egoic state. Or when you thought that your thoughts are real, now that's an outer state of consciousness. It's insanity. Psychotic. Now during awakening, you experience all those mystical states, when your consciousness explodes the universe, divine unity. Now that's an outer state of consciousness.
Yeah, so basically what he's talking about here is when certain conditioning drops, right? Certain parts of the identity, which is based on conditioning, on different patterns of your life, different beliefs. When those beliefs drop, then the body can either react with bliss or anguish, which we could call dark night of the soul or some sort of blissful state. which is both a reaction on the path to conditioning falling away.
99% of what you hear and read in the spiritual marketplace still belongs to the stage. Now, after awakening, for the first time, you access the natural state, and that is an unaltered state of consciousness. Now, the natural state is deeper than any mind-blowing experiences you can have. There's no more lenses of perception. Even the experiencer is dissolved. Now, there's no levels to this thing because all levels of consciousness still belongs to the dream state. See, a big self is not no self. Now, for those who's only experienced the ego state and the mystical experiences, are always going to confuse enlightenment with altered states of consciousness. Like, I want more. Give me more cosmic bliss. Now,
it's just his. This is Tom Odell's Heal, which you heard here on the background, which I find really, really beautiful. I find his videos in general, Frank Yang, like such a transmission. Can't say that enough. I really experienced that a lot while watching his videos, which I think are really, really powerful, especially some of those just before and after his no-self transition, I think are really, really powerful.
Quantum difference between you as a separate entity experiencing the divine versus the infinite apprehending itself. Eternity gazing back at itself. The universe fucking itself without any lubes or a condom. There's a world of difference between momentarily transcendence of the self versus the permanent dropping away of the self. Now, the former is quite common these days.
Yeah, so he's talking about the difference between either having a glimpse in meditation, which feels like an experience, like a temporary experience where actually the self is sort of temporary, or a part of conditioning is temporary, shut off, and it can come back again, is very different to then the naturalness and the simpleness, but also the beautifulness of this lived, as a day-to-day reality. And especially if you're having a glimpse with psychedelics, your dopamine and serotonin is so boosted that it feels like such a special experience, which is also different from if it's your day-to-day. It's no longer special in that sense because it's just your day-to-day.
They're peak experiences induced by meditation or psychedelics, but the latter is a realization, and that's rare. Although it's what's always...
Yeah, so realization is basically locking in this direct experience, not having it as a temporary experience.
It's been the case for everyone. It's the deepest dimension of every being. And this dark light of the absolute transcends but includes all particular experiences in finite forms. And now you're truly unilocal. You're nowhere, everywhere, but also somewhere. You're nobody, everybody, and somebody. You're nothing, everything, and also something. And that there.
So this unilocalness means basically, at some point it feels like when you lose this perspective, it's like your consciousness, like your essence, not the body meat suit, right? But just the experience of reality itself feels unilocal, meaning it feels like it's no longer at a location, even though you feel that the body is definitely in a certain location. You no longer feel that your consciousness in any way is limited to a location.
There are no things, only interconnectedness and interrelations. See, even consciousness is not a primordial substrate. It's a process, just like other objects, where the witness, the witnessing, and the witnessed simultaneously and codependently arising.
It's all these dualities falling away, right? All these aspects of reality merging as one.
And neither has an inherent existence. So clinging on to a universal mind still leads to suffering. You gotta go beyond both the individual and the collective mind. Be that source which manifests both. That difference between the majestic contraction and expansion of the same sensation and energy. The dissolution of ego is awakening. Dissolution.
Yeah, dissolution of the ego is awakening. That's beautiful. I just love the visuals as well, because it's visually also telling the story of, with this looping, for example, it feels like it's visually showing the connectedness of the ground and the sky, and it's kind of like this is, yeah, it's such a beautiful
of even quote unquote God is enlightenment. Everybody wants to be a spiritual Kant, but nobody wants to fully wake up.
Take my mind. How I take that is that everybody wants to talk about awakening, about meditation and things like that. But when it comes to these investigating this really existential stuff, that's when it gets hard for people. Like the really identity level beliefs, for example, and investigating those, or really doing the work when it gets uncomfortable, because when it gets more existential or you get closer to deeper realization, meditation or meeting some of these energies or beliefs is not for the faint of heart. It can be really intense, but in the end, all is well. But it's, yeah, it like a part of you says, I don't want to dissolve, and that's the nervous system orienting itself around this, and it needs to sort of every time find new ground and integrate and stabilize. So it's like this game of this chipping away of this conditioning, which is actually a nice thing, but it just costs a lot of energy, because there's an integration part to that, there's a stabilization part of that. The nervous system needs to reorient itself a little bit. And especially when that happens fast, it can be really intense for people. So if you're going through that, by the way, I've written a free guide on how to stabilize your awakening and what to do grounding wise. That's also below. By the way, Tom Odell's Heal Again is such a beautiful song. And this is such a funny part, I think.
You're gonna die over and over and over again. You're dying into the ordinary, moment by moment. You're dying into the extraordinary, moment by moment.
Because you're merging with it.
See, most mystical experiences are the byproduct of the dissolution of the separate self. When you're peeling up the layers and layers of the mind, even jhanas. We tend to confuse the side effect with the goal. Now, what happens when you have a glimpse of reality before you have completely dissolved separation is that you tend to project whatever shadows and beliefs, past experiences onto the infinite. Whether it's, oh, I'm a great meditator, or I'm God, or this is what I think is the truth to reality. You think you're moving forward, but you're just actually piling on more conditionings. See,
this list is similar to the list we already went through, but it's just very clear, beautiful map.
The character responses to this glimpse is bliss or ecstasy. That's your spiritual high. If the character responses to this opening is disgust, fear, and confusion, that's your dark night of the soul. They're two sides of the exact same coin. If you're still experiencing Kundalini energies, then you still haven't completed the circuits.
Yeah, that's where I disagree, because Kundalini energy can go way beyond no self. And that's something that he also, when you see videos of him 3 years later, he says, like at some point, I think 3 years later, for him, the energetic shifts stopped, and the energy got really calm. But I'm like a year and a half in, and I'm still experiencing some Kundalini energy. So I think it's very normal to have energetics and energetic experiences after no self, whether you call that Kundalini or not. So that's not really true that you need to first finish the loop, or that it's not really, you could say it definitely liberation or the process. You could say it's never done, right? Because it's always going, but there are certain milestones. And with this milestone of no self, it's not true that you need to first finish Kundalini to have no self. That's not true.
After it's all said and done, even the great meditator can't jhana anymore because nothing can touch the infinitude of the full nadi state.
Then I also have to say that there's this difference between people experiencing temporary energetics on the path or people that have Kundalini their full path because they're having this Kundalini awakening. That's very different from people that have Kundalini for a part of their path or a little bit of their path, or have Kundalini not so much active. I've heard that described as prajna energy, meaning just energy in the body, which, comes and goes, etc. So with Kundalini, that's a little bit different, because when you have a true Kundalini awakening, that means from the beginning of your awakening, almost at the beginning to the end, you'll be guided by your nervous system in this nervous system awakening.
It's like you're constantly in a state of samadhi. See, once all your chakras open up, you're not going to feel them anymore. See, realization does not exclude all the previous stages. In fact, all experiences cannot be manifested even more purely without the experiencer.
I truly agree with that. Like, all experiences are so much more pure in a way because there's not something that's clinging onto it or holding onto it.
Completely vanishing and dissolving into the fabric of reality.
I love his enthusiasm about this. He's still like very much in the what is this? This is so cool experience. Well, personally, I thought it was really cool, but I also thought it was really scary at the same time. But it seems like for him, it's just this very cool experience, and he's enjoying it so much. So I love watching that.
And you're so immersed in the present moment that even the power of now doesn't exist. There's no past, there's no future. Every moment, when you're truly in the present moment, it's disjointed. It's disjointed. And every moment is complete, totally encapsulated within itself, so that it's totally eternal and timeless. It's absolutely beautiful. If I don't put my lens of perception back on it, this lens of perception could be anything from emptiness to bicycle to Louisa coffee over there, or God consciousness, green, pink.
Yeah, you can switch between certain parts of reality, basically. It's like flipping the TV. You can look at the emptiness aspect, look at the fullness aspect, focus on something specifically. Those realizations that have happened, you can experience it that way. You can even sort of focus on the avatar or live in a sort of ego-focused state without any ego, meaning you just live like you used to live, like from the body sense. You can also focus on the body and living that experience. So I very much resonate with one of my lovely teachers.
If I don't put the mind back on like just a funny wardrobe, I can't tell the difference between anything. It's just, I think it's just this one big blob of infinity. I think that's how babies see the world. And it's fucking, it's like it's like a natural, permanent LSD or mushroom trip. Except again, it goes beyond psychedelic trips.
Take my past and take my sins.
Yeah, but then without, of course, we're not talking LSD mushroom type of experience, as in that's a I've had some experience with mushrooms at least, and that's you could say very low dose. That's partly, but it's not in a high dose. It's not the same, of course, because when you get these sort of different visuals or different, that's not what this is like, of course.
Like an empty sail takes the wind.
Experience so is penetrating itself so thoroughly that there is no space for the separate self to existing. See, it's this gapless, seamless whole, and it's not coming in and out of some source or background. That's just, again, projections of the separated state. See, it's just colors and shapes and form, vibrations, sensations. Extremely, extremely immediate, spontaneous. See, without a perceiver anywhere in the head or outside the head or in the body perceiving anything, our sensations know themselves or comprehend themselves. Looking at the clouds right now, it's in the same space as my face from the absolute perspective, because it's the mind that gives rise to time and distance. God itself would not label itself as this or that. You're not going to ask trees or birds or dogs, what is awareness? Or do you feel like you are aware? No, they have an experience. Even the air in between objects is infinitely full and made up of the exact same no thing as the sky, the leaves, even the rocks. The body, the hair, the eyeballs, the teeth, the tongue, the livers, the thoughts, the feelings, the memories, the traumas, the fucked upness, the perfectness, the limitedness, the unlimitedness, the perfection, the imperfection, all of it. All of it.
They're only reflections, but no mirror. Now, when you move around the world as the world, without a center point, solidity, or any sense of separation, it feels like you don't have a body or a mind, but the entire universe is your boundless Dharma body. When you walk, it's just the universe.
I would say you still have the body and the mind, but the body and the mind feels so empty and full and so different, and you don't feel bound to it at all. Even though you're experiencing it, you don't feel bound to it at all. Just like you're watching the computer, you know that the computer is not, it's almost like there's no attachment to your point of view, right? It's totally empty, because there's no sense of separation, there's no sense of self, there's no sense of solidity, but there is experientially the experience of the body, which is very nice.
Just walking. It doesn't feel like you're moving or going anywhere, but from another perspective, every part within this whole is codependently originating to make every single thought, movement, and action absolutely perfect. So living life in a natural state, it's almost like you're permanently in a state of cessation or nibbana. You're truly gone, yet fully present. That's why cessation, the highest meditative attainment, is such an important practice. Because the purest unfabricated state is unconsciousness. But see, death is not the point. It's to live life to the fullest. Wow.
Exactly. I don't know if I've had cessations, to be honest. Even though I've had these realizations, these states. I can think of moments where I might have had a cessation, but I don't know. I think that's not the important thing. What the important thing he's saying here is that death is not the point, right? True cessation is you blipping out of consciousness. And that's not per se the point, right? The point is not to blip out of consciousness. The point is to be here fully, which is the embodiment of this, which is, after the realization of no self, the change is in perception, the embodiment of this is what it's all about. Living this fully in and as the body and orienting towards that and not spacing out.
Been dead. Show me your mystical experience. If it's not right here, right now, for everybody, since the day you were born, even before that, and when you die and after that, then it's not it. In the full natty state, you have the reflexivity to be a god, a human being, or a monkey. But you have to be nothing before you can be everything, or else you're going to run into trouble.
Yeah, so that you have to be nothing before you can become everything. Meaning, or how I interpret that is that it's like the emptiness of self. That's first realized, so you're not looking for anything in the experience.
And in place of this absence is the manifestation of the entire existence that goes beyond existence and non-existence, form and emptiness. And nirvana is samsara. You gotta transcend even the transcendental and see that those different modes of existence are just different reconfigurations of the same transient empty sensations. But to truly realize this at the experiential level, one has to dissect and dissolve all experiences from the most divine to the most mundane, down to the atomic level, and then vanish into the singularity prior to the Big Bang and the Big Crunch.
See, like I said in one of my earlier stories, once you really embody it, understand something, you don't see it anymore. So if you still think that, if you're one of those God people, if you're still thinking that, oh, everything is God, or you have the thought that, oh, I am God, then you haven't become God. You haven't embodied it. God hasn't been embodied to be so thoroughly that it's you. You're still thinking that, right? Just like if you truly found the self, like an eyeball that can't see itself, but it sees everything else. If you truly found the true self of no self, you can't experience or even see it.
Yeah, so my experience was that the self dropped away when I truly saw what was motivating the self on a deep level. The essence of self, when you see the essence of self, the self falls away. So that's what he's saying here as well.
That's why you can never understand the mind with the mind. It's only by dissolving the self to the higher perspective of no mind.
And the same thing with when he's talking about God, he's talking about this fullness aspect. When you see the substance of fullness is actually emptiness. And when you see emptiness is actually expressing itself as fullness. then both can fall away and merge together.
That you can truly understand the self by the time the self would disappear. See, because you can't kill the ego with the ego, because that which tries to kill the ego is ego. The only way is to see through it by loving and accepting and expressing every particle of it until the separate self dissolves into love. And to love is to die. And to die is to manifest all of reality. And this is the deepest form of love there is, going beyond the fleeting emotions and passion and bliss of the character. Independent of the conditions of even trying to be a compassionate person. And this is what Osho calls a cold love. See the paradox?
Yeah, that is not necessary for you to sort of be this compassionate type of character, right? That's almost like faking it. Like faking being loving.
Is that after you transcend the desire to help yourself and other people, that's when true compassion arises spontaneously.
This is my experience as well, because the essence of myself was the fact that I needed to prevent people from suffering. And when I didn't need to prevent them from suffering, that was when I could freely and compassionately start really meeting people when they were suffering.
Without any feels. And this is the difference between a bodhicitta, arhat, and Buddhahood, which is your true nature. So the former is still stuck on the ground of love and compassion. And the arhat is still tripping over nirvana and obsessing over death and nothingness. The full nadi state is the combination, the merging and transcendence of both, being and non-being, love and death. And here all stages are void. The only way to move on to the next level is to dissolve and absorb the current one. That's why self-inquiry, the whole process of it is to disidentify every stratum of the dream state. You simply disidentify and objectify everything you experience, everything that you can witness, look at, perceive, experience, be aware of, and then simply note it as not self. Whatever can be observed and objectified cannot possibly be the subject. You can be aware of awareness, that's not it. If you can experience nothingness or God, that's not it either. So if everything in your field of experience can be objectified, then where, when, who, and what are you? But see, without dissolving the center of solidity, using vipassana or abiding in infinite consciousness using do-nothing meditation, it's very difficult to take self-inquiry to the endpoint. So any solidity that's left in your field of experience can still be looked at or is mistaken to be the one that's looking, see?
Yeah, the solidity starts to get less and less and less.
Thus reinforcing and creating the duality between a witness and a witness, the one asking the question and the answers. So insights and wisdom are the uncovering of what's already the case. I always say that your awareness becomes panoramic. Well, is the world 360? If yes, then you are 360 because you are the world. To fully embody spirituality and the fruits on the path is to let go of the whole notion of spirituality. See, spirituality is the program of all programs, but it also must self-destruct for you to return to the natural state. And for a lot of very serious seekers, it's the last layer of conditions. See, because ultimately, there's no such thing as spiritual knowledge. Quote-unquote truth is the end of knowledge, end of mind. And that's freedom, brah.
And tell me things last. And tell me tell me something besides.
So freedom is the end of knowledge. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Frank, for sharing your wisdom on the internet. And thank you so much for watching. Much love to you. Bye.